So some people are prepared in time, although I also just only started this morning on the slides. So I don't really know if the entire story is going to be straight, so apologies up front a little bit. Navigating cross-platform advertising challenges, meeting today's expectations. I had to do something that marketing also approved, so it's a very long title. I actually just want to talk to you about something that really triggers me these days at THEO. We started working around advertisement, and from a typical question at THEO, like, why is this so hard? Can't we do it differently? And it feels that we're onto something. So I'm a bit passionate to talk about it, but also with a note, I'm not the advertisement expert yet. So there might be some things that I don't know all about yet, okay? So at THEO, I'm responsible for the engineering team and also apparently for the customer success team since 4 years already. And before that, I always worked into media, so in telcos. Telenet, which is a big telco in, there's the screen there also, big telco in Belgium, part of the Liberty Global Group, where I went afterwards and built a set-top box platform, then did a crazy adventure with THEO, and then 4 years at THEO these days. THEO, maybe we should also do a show of hands. Who knows THEO? Boo, come on guys. Come on guys. 80% is good. 80% is good. I think we have an impressive list of logos. So THEO is, we call ourselves a small Belgian company conquering the world, which we're actually doing if you look at our logos. It started off with a video player called THEO Player. Web, iOS, Android, also Roku, React Native, Flutter, all those kind of things. And since 2.5 years, we also have THEO Live, which is a product aimed at sub-second latency end-to-end. So you send us an RTMP or SRT, we transcode, package, do the CDN, do the player, and glass-to-glass sub-second we can do. So pretty cool stuff. And yes, we're sponsoring drinks. That's probably an applause, right? Good. First thing, I talked about this in New York 2 months ago. Talk about pizza a little bit. I presume there's also pizza here today. I had a very interesting experience doing THEO in Belgium, which was actually a venture with 6 or 7 people. Can we build a telco using the mobile network? So give people their home set-top box, their home internet, using the mobile network. And our ambition was not to be the best in live TV, not to be the best in the set-top box, not to be the best in the internet, but the mission was as simple as ordering a pizza. And from that, I always remembered, like, you need to make sure that if you have a small team, even if you have a big team, know what sets you apart, know what your experience is, and put your focus there. So everything which should support that, make sure that you trust on partners or on the right technology for that. But don't try to do it yourself, because it will distract you from your mission of doing things that really influence your experience, really set you apart. The cool thing about this small project that I did is we really succeeded in it. You could click online, order it, next day, 2 boxes in, somebody came at your door, gave you 2 boxes, plug it in, hoppakee, you had internet and you had TV. Very cool project. But for me, what I always remember, as simple as the pizza, and focus on what sets you apart. Then, advertisement. My first experience with advertisement, and a bit linked to what we're going to talk today about, which I realized talking to Willem this week, is these ancient set-top boxes, cable set-top box. Actually, there in 2015, we were already doing personalized advertisement. So we were on a set-top box, which had a hard drive, downloading an ad break up front, downloading an ad break even if we would not start playing it, but we would download it to the disk. And from the moment in the cable single there was a trigger, a SCUDdy trigger, we would switch to the recording, and hoppakee, you had personalized ads on a set-top box. So that was my first experience, and actually it's a bit of a flashback because everything comes back in our industry, in our technology, it seems. Why are we looking at optimizing ad experiences today? You could think about that. First of all, what we saw at THEO, or when we started working on it, and it's an experience of the last 2 years, actually. We first had with THEO Live, our sub-second latency product, the challenge of how are we going to do mid-rolls with a player buffer that's only 400 to 500 milliseconds. How are we going to do that? That was one challenge. We looked at that and we said, okay, let's do server-side ad insertion. Nope, not ideal. Let's do client-side. Also not ideal. And our conclusion was maybe we need a hybrid. The second trigger for us to start looking at advertisement was going to a customer in the Nordics and seeing issues on smart TVs. They were doing server-side ad insertion, but they were encountering lip sync. The longer they played, the more ad breaks they consumed. So we started, can't we do it differently? Can't it be simpler than this? And if you look at it, currently, the experience is not that great. If you look at the current, we're all used to it. You watch content, all of a sudden the screen goes away, you get an ad for 2-3 minutes, and then you go back to the content. That's not really engaging with your content because you just disconnect all your users. If you then look at the young guys out there, I still consider myself young, I hope, but that's not the experience that they perceive as good. They will tune away, they will go away, and you lose your viewers. Second reason is fan engagement. How do you keep your viewers engaged, which is a bit linked to the previous one, but we're all also looking at more ways to monetize the same content. So how can we monetize our content, keep the viewers on our content, but also bring it in a way that is less intrusive, so people tolerate the ads. And I learned also this week, apparently, showing bad ads, or for example, a spinner before the ad, even gives a negative connotation to the brand that is in the advertisement. So it's super important to get the right ads there and in the right experience. And the last thing, and that's a statement I also heard this week, is, but also just do regular ads better. Even if it's not the experience you want, a full screen ad replays, but if you think of it, we should be able to do it better. Do it with less cost, do it with less complexity, just do it better. So that's why we are looking at ads today. If we see what's out there today, and probably most of you know a little bit about ads, I presume. Client-side ad insertion was there first. Everybody did it at some point in time. And the cool thing is it gives you a lot of control over the experience. You're doing it client-side, so you can choose where you put your ad, how you present your ad, those kind of things. You don't need actually a lot of infrastructure, almost no infrastructure on your backend, because your client is doing it. Very cool. So what you see today and what we see as a player is in VOD, and for VOD pre-rolls, we see this being applied still quite a lot these days. There are also a few downsides to it, like break signaling. If you want to tell your player where do you want to put a break, yeah, you have to find something proprietary. You need to find something out to signal to your player, where are my breaks? Cross-platform is a bit of a challenge. If you want to go to a smart TV, if you want to go to all different devices out there and you want to do client-side ad insertion, you need to switch from different codecs, switch to different formats, which is not that simple on all these different devices, and certainly not if you want to have a good experience. You need to develop on the client, of course, because you're doing client-side ad insertion. But also the next thing is, I think nobody here will tolerate, and I think more and more of the industry goes to a broadcast-like experience, tolerate that you have for 2 or 3 seconds a black screen, or your screen jumps up and down, or your quality goes down. So getting a smooth experience is not that trivial. Certainly not because people want the same experience on all different devices, even on a Tizen TV of 2016, for example. And the last thing, of course, with client-side ad insertion, ad blockers. Which is, of course, a big thing. If you're monetizing your content, but nobody's watching your ads, that's a bit of a problem. SSAI, server-side. I think everybody moved to it at some point in time. So you're able to get a smooth transition, of course. You're stitching the ads into the stream, so it's one stream. Of course, you're able to get it smooth. Ad blockers don't have a chance because you're doing it server-side. You don't even know that it's an ad. It's actually pretty easy for live if you look at it, because you can reuse your SCUDdy triggers, which are already in there. So you can reuse that to do your break insertion. And then what I always hear is cross-platform, it's easy, all my platforms do it, I have 35 platforms out there, it needs to work everywhere. True, but it's actually only true for your MVP. If you just want to do your full screen replace, then indeed this is the perfect way to go. And on the other hand, the example that I gave with the smart TV in the Nordics, it also doesn't work everywhere. If you have small gaps in your buffer, if you have timescales that are not fully aligned, I can guarantee you, you still run into trouble, and SSAI is not that magical bullet for all of your platforms. A bit on the downside, and you see that I think in many talks like these recently, is how do you scale SSAI? How do I scale my stitcher who needs to measure all the sessions that are out there, manage them all? How do I do it? Which also comes with a cost, of course. And what we see even with one of our bigger customers is they don't even dare to touch their stitcher anymore during the season, because what if something goes wrong? Everything is screwed up. So you have a single point of failure almost. Personalization is very hard to do. Inventory use is also a thing. Like, the server doesn't know what your client is going to do. You as a viewer can all of a sudden decide, I'm going to watch another stream. Your server doesn't know that. And your server does need to prepare for the next ad break, so he's going to reserve ad inventory. He's going to reserve ads because potentially you're going to watch it, but actually you're never going to watch it, which means that you're being a bit spillful with your ads. You're reserving ads that are very valuable and they will never be played. And the last thing is new experiences is pretty hard with SSAI, or you need a lot of infrastructure to get that done. I still got you guys, right? Following along? Very good. What are we seeing in the market? So I think I'm already going to it a little bit. Industry moved to SSAI, but we lost a lot of the advantages of client-side, of doing things client-side. And what do we see towards the player over the last 2 to 3 years? We see what I call internally a lot is we see bespoke SSAI compensation features. People that come to us, yeah, we want to do actually the ad impressions client side, so can we develop something on the player to do that? But then we need a proprietary way to get that metadata of those ads to the player, because the player needs to know where the ads are, etc., needs to know what URLs to call, etc., etc. So if you look at it, we have quite some integrations on top of our player to be able to do that. All bespoke, non-standard. There is more and more a demand for personalization. The example that I gave of if you're watching ads or you're getting ads served which are totally not related to you, it's not good for the engagement. People don't like it, and you even get a negative perception towards the ad or towards the brand that's being advertised. The less intrusive part, you want to keep your viewers on your stream. You potentially on your stream also have moments where you say, look, I could do an ad, but I'm not going to do it because potentially my stream is going to come back very quickly. Like moments that you say, look, I could do an ad, but not a full replace. So people are looking for less intrusive ways to put in an advertisement while still the content or the stream is continuing. Scalability, what I said, is something that's coming. And what we now see more and more is also ultra low latency. That's not really a thing. It is a thing for some use cases like sports betting, iGaming, those kind of things. But in video streaming, etc., you now see more and more towards us the demand of how can we get to the broadcast-like experience. Like you switch from your cable TV to your OTT, same latency, same experience, but also same experience for your ads, of course. Then things like fill rate and rendering rates. Like how do I get my breaks optimally filled with the right ads, the ads that are the most valuable. So if you're, for example, reserving inventory for everybody, inventory of your most costly ads, but you're never using it, it means that less returning ads, so less valuable ads, are being consumed. So that's not ideal. So you want to have a better fill rate. You also want to make sure you never show slate to your customers. You never want to get into a moment that you're not putting an ad in your content. That's a bit missed opportunity. And then rendering rates is the opposite of it. How many inventory am I reserving versus inventory that I'm actually consuming to my viewers, which is a very important metric. And then just like the video experience, and we see that with analytics partners, measuring the ad experience. I know that we talked about it earlier today also, is not just measure the scores of your of your video experience, the smoothness, the rebuffering, the quality, etc., but also for the ads, because it's equally important. And the conclusion of that is a bit, the focus right now is really on experience. Creating those less intrusive monetization opportunities, but in a better way than we're used to. And where we are very much looking into right now, or started working on, is server-guided ad insertion. Potentially some of you or most of you have heard about it already, but it's actually a logic redistribution of the responsibilities in the advertisement chain. So a bit of the best of the both worlds of SSAI and CSAI. Like the server conditions the breaks, puts the signal of the breaks in the manifest, still indicates where the breaks are, how to present it, those kind of things. But that's fully unpersonalized, so meaning your CDN can cache it, so it scales to the millions. Third part, the player does again the splicing. The player does the personalization. The player knows I'm on this platform, so on this platform I best take this strategy to play the ad. I use a second player, or I do it in the same player, or I do an experience with a double box or with an L shape, those kind of things. The fourth item is the ad server also plays an important part in it. In what we're now working on is the server actually returns a full HLS playable manifest. So actually, the player can just switch from one stream straight to the other. Pretty simple, pretty lightweight for all the different platforms. You're not downloading individual ads, you're not parsing XML, those kind of things, pretty simple. Smart people already said, what about ad blockers? Because you're going again on the client side. The brilliance of this is we have on the server also a component that signals where the breaks are, so we can also condition where your ads are coming from. So if you think a little bit further, you can make sure that the client not even knows that am I now playing content or ads, because it's actually coming from the same source. What powers this, or what triggered it to start on it, it's of course HLS interstitials. And we're also very much looking at what's going to happen in MPEG- with the alternate MPD events, hopefully coming soon. But there is an arrow here, promised land. I would still put a question mark next to it, but it looks very promising, because if you look at it, you get new experiences, you get the personalization, you're able to do the smooth transitions because the player knows, okay, I'm on this platform, I'm able to do best this strategy to get this ad playing in the best way. It's easy for both live and VOD. Your scale, your agility, and your cost is also better because on one end, you don't need a lot of infrastructure to do this. You don't need to transcode on the fly on the back end. The agility is also there because you're doing it actually on the player side. So feature flags, early releases, contained releases, you can really roll out new features very gradually and see if they are successful, and you don't have a big bang release by updating one component. Ad blockers, like I explained, the ad inventory use is also much better because your player is in control of when am I going to request data for my ad. So the player is in control of, okay, I'm seeing an ad break, I'm now going to ask the server to give me an ad break and give me ads, meaning that we're not over-provisioning ads for a break that might come or might not come. So it's also pretty cost-effective if you look at it. And then the question comes back that I had in the beginning and that we're now asking ourselves, are we revolutionizing advertisement? Maybe not. Maybe we are. We'll see. We're doing some tests and some trials with customers. We even have the first customers on it, but you can see already what actually just comes out of the box. And I was very amazed, and that's a bit weird to say as an engineer of a player company, all of a sudden that player is able to do double boxes with a companion background banner, do an L shape with a QR code on a smart TV to click through to your shopping basket. So pretty cool stuff, actually. And if you look at it, it's a pretty simple architecture, like I said earlier. Delivery side, singling the break, player decides how can I best present this advertisement. Use the same player, use a double player, what experience do I do? And the ad server actually just gives you a full playable ad break with all the ads that are playable for your device. Pretty cool stuff, I feel. I hope you guys also feel. So enthusiastic. We need to get some more beer to you guys. What the Very good. So server-guided ad insertion. I'm almost done, so I'm almost shoving away. I hope Phil is done with his presentation. Almost. Good. 10 reasons why it's revolutionary. We actually got this from one of our customers, and I think I'm repeating many of these things, but there are a few that I still want to point out, like simplicity. It's actually a super simple architecture. It's a super simple setup. So also operationally, to debug it, to troubleshoot it, it's very simple. It's future-proof. It's hyper-personalizable because you're all doing it fully on the client. So the client knows what you're doing, knows what your operating system is, know what your subscription is. For example, a high-tier subscription adds in a different way. A free subscription adds with a full content replace, for example. You can do it at ultra low latency. You can do it with that broadcast-like latency. Perfectly possible. You get faster startup times because you don't need to, on the server, start making a session, already reserve inventory, those kind of things. You're immediately able to play, which is all kind of cool. The last item is also an important one. You're able to basically condition your breaks at any time. You're playing a break and you say, ooh, let's go back to the content, which is perfectly possible. You can shorten breaks, lengthen breaks, even while they are playing. So pretty cool stuff, we feel, that we're working on. I would say if you're interested, certainly reach out. And if you have questions, then shoot.
Why would you want to extend or shorten the length of an ad as explained?
For example, if you're live sports.
Could you repeat the question?
I'll repeat the question. Why would you want to lengthen or shorten breaks while they are playing? If you're watching a live sports event, for example, there is a red card. Yeah, I'm from Europe, so soccer is our thing. There is a red card, and there is some fuss going on. You could say on the operator side, let's do an ad break. You go into an ad break. All of a sudden, the game starts again, and a goal is almost scored. You want to tell those clients, whoa, go back. They want to watch it. That's one of the reasons.
Hey, Michel, could you double-click on the... Hey, Prashant.
Hey, Prashant.
Could you double-click on the sub-second latency part of it? Because how quickly do you guys make these ad requests?
The ad request here is basically, you put it in the stream. So the ad request happens the moment that the player sees when the discontinuity happens, or in HESP, which we use for THEO Live, the alternative of it. On the other hand, also the server already calls from the moment it sees the SCUDdy trigger, the ad server to say, hey, prepare for an ad break coming, because otherwise, if you would do a Super Bowl, everything would go down because all your players are coming at the same moment. How fast are we able to do it? In all honesty, we still need to measure that at scale and in production, those kind of things. But since the server already knows there is an ad break coming, it's already conditioned, it's already preparing it. The ad break itself and returning it, it's actually the same thing if you would zap to another session. So if you would just do a session setup of another one. So depending, right now, I know I'm probably going to go into a rabbit hole if I start explaining HESP and those kinds of things. But you're switching another HLS manifest, so calculate basically the startup time of your HLS that you need to count. So is it going to be able to do it sub-second right now? No, but if we would package it as HESP, then we would perfectly be able to do that. I hope I answered the question. People are shy. Yes.
If I recall, one of the challenges with the client-side ads that you pointed out was like timestamps, mismatch, that sort of thing.
Yes.
How is this getting around that problem?
The thing is here, we integrate basically on the HLS manifest side, and we basically insert at the same moments as your GOP size. So where are basically your keyframes are, there we will also do the switch. And it's on the other side also the player that is able to determine where can I insert the break. So at where am I playing currently, and is it possible to right now put the ad break? So based on the information you get from your server through your signaling, through your date ranges that you get, you're able to extract that information. While on the client side, it's more arbitrary. You're basically saying, I want an ad break at that time point, but you don't know that time point in your timeline what that is. It can be in the middle of a GOP, can be in the middle of something else. So that makes that doing that on the client leads to a black screen, or in some cases even to a seek back. If you do on a smart TV, it seeks back to a previous keyframe. You get horrible things.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Really, people are no longer shy. Oh my God.
Yeah, you had mentioned that ad blockers are a concern on client side, but you said that the solution kind of avoids the ad blocker issue.
Yes.
How does that happen? How is it avoided?
Well, basically, if you're doing ads on the client side, then it's very clear. You go to google. Or pub.google. Double click, those kind of things. It's very clear to what domain it goes. But here, since you are provisioning and conditioning the ad break on the server side, you can perfectly also say, look, for your ads, you come to the same domain as where your content is on, only to a different path. Meaning that if your ad blocker is there and he would block that domain, yeah, sorry, then your content is also gone. Probably after some while, ad blockers will also start detecting the path in the URL and those kind of things, but let's assume that that's still far ahead of us. But
And I have another separate question.
come on, compete, fight a little bit.
Yeah, so are you using the HESP conditioning for the ads themselves at this point in time in some?
Yes, but only in a lab environment. That was an innovation project where we looked what do we do best, and there we did do it. We just put an HESP. We currently only use it for live, but there we did package it for a VOD, or basically more as a DVR. And we saw, yeah, that's actually an instant channel change that you're doing, but that purely a lab setup. And that's, as I'm an engineer and also responsible for customer success, I always want to see first things in production before I say, yes, it works.
Yeah, my other question was related to the ad marker. If somebody tunes into that channel in the middle of an ad break, how would you kind of signal to it if the ad marker was already earlier in the manifest?
Yeah. HLS interstitial is actually just date ranges. So basically the player knows I'm here in a date range, I'm in a range of an ad break. So he knows that he's tuning in there. So meaning that at that point in time, the player can also calculate, okay, how far out is that ad break? So what is the remaining duration? At that point in time, the player does a request for that remaining duration to fill the ad break, basically. Yeah.
Sorry if this wasn't clear, but does this work for both programmatic and direct I/O?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, there is no difference in that, yes.
How does it integrate both of those together? Because sometimes the ad server even has a challenge with that. I
Yeah.
guess.
So currently how we are building our POCs together with our friends of Google, and actually there we are using their pod serving APIs, and we are lucky that they're doing all of that things for us. So we're not having to worry about it. We'll see how it goes. But right now, not a worry.
Hi, so you mentioned everyone's coming up with their own way of tracking the ad and impressions and sending metadata over. What are you doing to standardize?
Currently, we are using, in this solution, we are using ID3 data in the playable ad break. So in the playable ad break, there is ID3 data that basically at the right point says, okay, I'm midpoint, I'm third quartile at the end. And that we basically, in that is encapsulated the ad beacons, the URLs, and those we use to fire.